Alright folks, we are back with our next installment, one of our last installments of Module 4 Notes. This is a big one. For Module 4 Notes, make sure to get your title, your name, and your number. This is going to be Module 4, Lesson 31. 31. So we've got quite a Roman numeral on this one. 10, 20, 30, and then one more. Starting to look like a Super Bowl title here. Okay. All right, 31. So lesson 4-31 is all about dividing a decimal by a decimal. Dividing a decimal by a decimal. Now, when you are dividing decimal by decimal, it's going to be a lot like regular division. There are a couple of things you have to remember, though, since we are dealing with decimals. So we're going to dive right into the process here. Most of the vocabulary we'll be using is the same that we've been using for regular division, so hopefully it'll sound pretty familiar. Okay. Let me zoom in a little bit, make that a bit bigger. There we go. Step 1. Step 1. Come on. Focus, camera. There we go. Now, step 1 is going to be one of the odd differences. This is going to be something a little bit new. Okay? You are going to move the decimal point. Move the decimal point in the divisor. Okay. Now again, some of this vocabulary you've heard before. The divisor is the number we're dividing by. It's usually the second number. The second number in our division expression. I'll show you that in a moment. You're going to move the decimal point in the divisor to the right, until you have a whole number. I'll have to go on the margin on this one. A whole number. Now that part's pretty important. Okay, you want to make sure you have a whole number here. Let me show you what this is going to look like. So for the example I'm going to give you, I'm going to take 4 and 96 hundredths. Now this is our dividend. This is what we're starting with. This is what we're going to bust up into little parts. So that's our dividend. This is what we're starting with. Divided by, like I said, divided by. This will be our divisor. Okay? This is our divisor. So I am going to take said divisor, right, 0.8, except I am going to jump the decimal to the right, one jump, to make a whole number. Okay. So this goes from being 0.8, 8 tenths. I'm jumping over 1, and we're turning it into just 8. Okay. Now, what's happening when we're jumping the decimal, when we're moving the decimal? Okay. You want to think like this. We are taking the original decimal, we're taking the original divisor, and we're going to multiply it by some power of 10. In this case, just 10. Because if I multiply this by 10, that will cause the decimal to move over, which is what I want. I want the decimal in the divisor gone, essentially. Okay, I want it gone. So I jump over, in this case, just one time. If this had been 0.825, I would have had to jump over 1, 2, 3 times. You jump until it's a whole number. You move it until it's a whole number. Okay. Sorry, trying to make sure the whole thing's showing up on the screen. There we go. Okay. So I'm spending a lot of time on this because this step is super important. This step determines how the next step goes, step 2. Because for step 2, you are going to move the decimal point, in the dividend. We're kind of going backwards. The dividend. We're going to move the decimal point in the dividend now. But it must be moved the same number of places. Now I'm going to take some time to really make sure that this is super, super clear. With the divisor, we moved that decimal point over as many spaces as it took to make a whole number. That is not happening with the dividend. We move it the exact same number of places. The same number of places to the right. The exact number of places. I'm going to repeat that about 40,000 times because it's super important. The divisor, we jumped over one place. So that means our dividend, we're going to do the same thing. Now I've got 4 and 96 hundredths to start. Remember, that was our dividend. Okay. Divided by, I changed the divisor. I turned it into, well, I'm pretending that it's 8 because I moved the decimal point over one spot. So for the dividend, I'm going to do the same thing. Pencil keeps breaking. There we go. 49.6. It was originally for 0.96. I am going to move the decimal over one spot. One jump only. One jump. Okay. Now when I do that, you can see I am not making a whole number. I still have a decimal for my dividend, and that is okay. That is okay. The dividend can be a decimal, and I'll show you why in a minute. Okay? But you want to focus on that one jump, and the reason you're only doing one, you're doing the same, is because you want to think we multiplied the divisor by 10. Could have been 100, could have been 1,000, but 10 worked. So if I multiply this divisor by 10, I want to multiply my original dividend by the exact same thing, by 10. It's almost like when we're making equivalent fractions. You multiply one piece, the numerator, and the denominator, the other piece, you multiply them by the same thing, and it helps you keep the same value. That's kind of what we're doing here. Okay. So now I have transformed my divisor. I used that to help transform my dividend. And this is key right here. The dividend may or so important I broke my pencil, or may not be a whole number when you're done. The dividend may or may not be a whole number when you're done. Okay. Sometimes it will turn into a whole number. That's cool. Sometimes it won't. Also cool. The key, change the divisor first. Remember, this is the second number in your expression. This is the number that's going to go on the outside when I do my division hut in a moment. Change that one first. however many places the decimal point jumps to make the whole number, that's what you're going to jump on the next part too. Okay? Now, let's take a look at step 3. Adjust my camera here a little bit, make sure it's on the screen. There we go. Okay? For step 3, rewrite the problem. Rewrite the problem using the standard algorithm. Remember, that's, let's say, the division hut. Rewrite the problem using the standard algorithm. Standard algorithm. I just have to check my spelling. Using the standard algorithm and solve. Okay. So, we changed the original problem. We multiplied this and this by 10 times 10 times 10. So now we have new numbers. 49 and 6/10 divided by 8. The reason we're multiplying everything by 10 is because a divisor that has a decimal, it causes problems. It makes things messy. Thinking of dividing something by tenths or hundredths can be very complicated. But we're pretty comfortable dividing by whole numbers. So I used that multiply by 10, both parts, to turn this into a whole number. Okay. And again, we'll go ahead, draw my division hut. Dividend goes inside the new dividend, 49 and 6/10 divided by 8. From this point, the division is normal. It's what you're used to. Okay? Bring the decimal point up immediately. 4 divided by 8. That's not going to work. 8 won't go into 4. 4 is too small. But 8 will go into 49. Think of my 8 times tables. 8 times 5 is 40. 8 times 6 is 48. That's pretty close. 6 times 8 is 48. Yeah, that looks good. 49 minus 48. 9 minus 8 is 1. Okay. Got a 1 down here that's less than 8. I do have this to bring down, though. Now remember, you don't have to worry about bringing the decimal down. You already brought it up, so we're good there. I just look at this as 16. 8 will go into 16. 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. That's nice. 2 times 8. Okay. Well, my pencil doesn't want to do it, but I would argue that 16 minus 16 is pretty easy, so we're going to soldier on. 16 minus 16 is a 0. Looks good. Okay. Now, we don't have a ton of space left, or a ton of times. Don't worry, we're almost done. But step 4 is pretty important. Step 4. Check your answer. Check your answer. Then record it. Check your answer, then record it. Now to check, I'm going to kind of go back up here because I don't have a ton of space. I am going to take this quotient, 6 and 2/10, and I am going to multiply it, not times 8. I'm going to multiply it times the original divisor, 8/10. Now, if I did my work correctly, once I multiply my quotient, right, 6 and 2/10, once I multiply that by the original divisor, I should, hopefully, if I did it correctly, I should get my original dividend. So I should get 4 and 96 hundredths. Let's find out. Okay. 8 times 2 is 16. Carry the 1. 8 times 6 is 48. Plus 1 is 49. Okay, well, looking so far so good. We have 1 decimal place here and 2 decimal places here. That means we start here, we go over 1, 2 jumps. We don't drop the decimal straight down when we're multiplying. Remember, we count how many decimal places, and we put that 1, 2 down here. Okay, 4.96. 4.96, 4 and 96 hundredths. So, I found my original dividend. If I were to divide that by 8 tenths, the answer would, in fact, be 6 and 2 tenths. Always box up your answer. And that's it. We're all set. Okay. Again, this is a slightly longer one because there are some more steps, and again, they call it long division for a reason. If you have any questions, make sure that you write those down, just on a sticky note or something, and we will go over them when I see you in class. All right, thanks everybody. That's it for now. I'll see you next time.